Still on election matters, the Senate is planning to introduce a bill to address election and post-election violence in the country. Now, according to the upper chamber, the proposed bill, that's if it is signed into law, will prescribe severe punishment for perpetrators of violence during any election in the country. Now, this follows a nationwide outcry over the growing incidents of election violence, and that's particularly in the recent Kogi and Bayelsa state election during the 16th of November governorship polls. Our correspondent Terry Kumi now reports.
As moved by the Speaker.
Almost 2 weeks after the elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states, the National Assembly is reacting to the violence that occurred.
Complicit in the violence
in the House of Representatives, raised as a matter of urgent public importance, the Deputy Minority Leader expresses worry that despite the deployment of over 65,000 policemen for the elections, there were still significant cases of violence leading to deaths. While the police says it has arrested 6 suspects in the case of the murder of the PDP women leader in Kogi State, the lawmakers believe an investigation by the House is still necessary.
The House resolves to constitute a joint committee to investigate the pre- and post-election security breaches in Kogi and Bayelsa, including the alleged presence of fake police officers.
Our children are asking questions about why elections held in 1963 will not be different from elections held in 2019. I condemn what has happened, if at all it happened. But I think we should be fair to allow a good reasoning, a good investigation from the police first, so that we can get to the root of the matter.
A minute of silence is observed for those who lost their lives during the elections, as the Speaker charges the committee to make no reference to any political party in its report.
Just the facts of what happened without reference to any political party, so that such is not used against whether it's PDP or APC in court.
Page 430.
Meanwhile, when the matter is raised in the Senate, the Majority Leader proposes a bill to check election violence.
This negative effect of electoral violence in the country will continue to reduce the citizens' confidence in the democratic process, as well as heighten the fears of possible democratic collapse.
If the Minority Leader and myself can come up with a bipartisan bill to look at the punishment for electoral violence and prescribe a legal regime that's going to be able to address it.
I believe that those who perpetrated the violence, especially in the last elections in Bayelsa and Kogi, should be apprehended and prosecuted.
Political analysts and security experts have warned of dire consequences if the growing violence experienced before, during, and after elections is not checked. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
So let's take the conversation forward and get some more perspectives on this issue. And we're being joined by the Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC, Senator Kabir Gaya, and the political analyst, Dr. Hamisu Abdurrahman. They both join us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this afternoon. I'd like to begin with Senator Gaya. Now, as it stands, we hear that there might be a bill for election offenders, or basically to prosecute during election and post-election violence. But then a lot of questions arise because on one hand, we have the Electoral Act. Of course, we know that there's an amendment still in the Senate as it stands. We have other, laws that basically are for elections in Nigeria. There's INEC rules and guidelines. There's also the Constitution of Nigeria. So the big question is, do we really need another bill, another legislation for electoral offenses and violence, or should we just focus on enforcing the ones we have on ground at this moment?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The question related to the violence during elections, the Senate has already received a bill that's sponsored by Senator Kari on the issue of offenses, electoral offenses, setting up a commission for electoral offenses. This commission is going to deal with all this issue of violence during the elections and make sure that they handle that directly, instead of leaving that thing into INEC. The Electoral Act already gives the powers to INEC, but the INEC cannot run election at the same time also prosecuting electoral offenses during elections. So therefore, we said that it's better and more direct to have a commission that can be able to handle that. And already the bill is processed. It was set up. It was brought up last year by Senator Kerry, and it was not being signed up to the end of the day of the last 8th Senate. So it brings out in the 9th Senate, because every bill that lapses during the 8th Senate can be brought up. They can bring it back into the 9th Senate. And I'm happy that Senator Kerry have brought it, and we are going to discuss in the Committee of a Whole, and then later be passed to our Committee of INEC to look at it, do public hearings, and get opinions of Nigerians, so that we can be able to get what Nigerians need, what changes Nigerians needed in this Electoral Offences Commission. It's very, very important. It's unfortunate what really happened recently in Kogi, where we lost so many people, including a chairperson of PDP. I'm happy that the police are investigating and they're able to make arrests of those who are found, who are allegedly suspected to be part of the gang that attacked the chairman's house.
All right.
So I think it's very, very important that bill is coming up.
Okay.
And we have to thank the sponsor of the bill for so doing.
All right. Another bill.
Determined to make sure that.
If I may come in, another bill which I'd like us to talk about is the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I'd like to take this to Dr. Abdurrahman. Now, we understand that in the House of Representatives also, a committee has been raised to look into, the conduct of the election in Kogi and Bayelsa State. And a lot of people are asking, we have the INEC on one hand, we have the police that are meant to investigate what exactly happened, take the cases to court and prosecute. So the big question is, what does that say about those institutions who have the primary responsibility to investigate and prosecute whatever offenses are committed during elections? And that's a question I would like you to respond to, but that will be when we come back from this break. So we'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll discuss this. Plus, Zamfara House of Assembly repeals the law which makes provision for pension and other emoluments for former governors and deputy governors. Well, let's now head over to our Abuja studios and continue our conversation about election matters, election offenses, and, the general outcome of the Bayelsa and Kogi polls. And we still have with us on the program the Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC, Senator Kabiru Gaya, and the political analyst, Dr. Hamisu Abdurrahman. Thank you so much for your patience. Just before I come to Dr. Abdurrahman, let's take a look first at what we have on ground. And that talks about the guidelines or the laws for election in Nigeria regarding offenses and penalties. I'm talking about the Electoral Act 2015 now. There you see what the law provides. You see unlawful possession of a ballot paper. The penalty is a maximum fine of 50 million naira. And you see another one, threatening a person with violence or injury to compel that person to vote or refrain from voting. You see the penalty, a fine of 1 million naira or imprisonment for a term of 3 years. And it goes on. And you can see that we have laws in place in the Electoral Act that deal with such offenses like snatching or destruction of election material. You see that receiving money or gifts, you see the penalty. Apparently, we have this law. So let's go back to Dr. Abdurrahman. I know before the break, I put out a question to you about the primary responsibility of institutions like INEC, the police, to investigate and prosecute some of these offenses. So what do you think this says about their roles?
Thank you very much for your question. I want to first of all say that it is unfortunate that Nigerians at this age refuse to learn a lesson or two after how many years of practicing democracy. By now, we should be talking about issues-based politics where people can canvass for their preferred candidates as well as policies. Unfortunately, we are back to 2007 and 1970s and the rest. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, something that we have to condemn. And I want to open our minds to one thing before I address the question you threw to me, which is the judgment of the Supreme Court with respect to Rivers State election. What that very particular judgment did was to really reverse the gains that have been made under JEGA. What do I mean? The card reader, if we all remember, before around 2015 election, when the card reader was first deployed, that was the first time in the history of this country, apart from the option A4 that was used to conduct election in the 1990s that generated outcome that was nearly peaceful. It is the only election that was almost peaceful because it really disarmed the political parties as well as candidates from mobilizing talks, because the market of talks in Nigeria has a demand and supply function. So there is nothing anybody can do about it. The stakes are high, and many persons used to stake their fortune in elections, and they're not willing to lose out. Therefore, the issue of thuggery, except if we evolve a method, and card readers serve that purpose. But that very particular judgment, which stated that card reader was not known to the law, really empowered our politicians once more to mobilize thugs, to rig elections, and go back to court. There is a working formula in Nigerian politics.
I understand.
It is better, it is often stated.
I have to butt in now. I have to butt
better.
in so we can move the conversation forward a moment. And let me go to Senator Gaya for, I mean, we talked about the Electoral Act amendment, which I understand passed second reading last week, if I'm correct, and it was referred to your committee to perform legislative work and report in a week. And I think this is a week already. So if you can tell us, what is the state of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which I believe is in your purview right now, and what should we be expecting in the coming days?
Well, the Electoral Act that have been proposed by and have been sent to our committee and the committee of INEC, we are looking at the clauses that have been changed or amended. And we will look at it, and at the same time, there's a need for us to also go ahead and do public hearing and get more opinions of the people. Then we're going to make sure we do that, because our intention is to make sure we have an act that is suitable for the Nigerian people, an act that will prevent all these people that take advantage during the elections to make sure that they either snatch ballot papers or create violence in other places, and also the electoral officers too, to make sure that they do their job well. So those are the areas of amendments in the new new amendment, which is about 26 clauses, and we're looking at those clauses to make sure that they are for the interest of Nigerians.
Okay.
We can conduct public hearing on that aspect and also get more opinions from even the INEC itself, from the experience in the last few elections, what did they take in it. And then we put that together and then bring it back to the Senate for confirmation and approval.
All right. On a final note, just before we go, a key aspect of this bill is a provision for electronic voting. Now, I'd like to know what your take is on electronic voting. Do you think we're ready for electronic voting as it stands right now, or it's perhaps for some time in the future?
Well, to be frank with you, I think there is need for more time to understand on this electronic voting, because the card reader has helped a lot, but with time also electronic voting can help a lot. But the only argument we have is the transmission of the electronic results. By electronic transmission of results, we found that even the United States of America, they had over 230 years of democracy, yet there has been interference in the election, for the last election. And Nigeria had not reached that high technology to prevent this kind of interference. So in view of that, we are still looking at the idea of not allowing the transmission of electronic results to the national headquarters or to the zonal headquarters or to the state headquarters.
So let's find out what Dr. Abdurrahman thinks about this on a final note. Electronic voting, are we ready or not now, on a final note?
I think we are not ready now.
Well, I have a differing view with respect to the submission on electronic voting. It is about evolving and moving ahead. So for me, it is something that is worth testing. No technology is perfect. When card reader was introduced, we said Nigeria was not right for it because there was no power, there was no this. But now card reader has come to stay. So for me, it is about looking ahead and then evolving strategies that will assist to enhance the process of voting in this country. So we'll learn from technology, not waiting for us to advance to meet technology.
Right.
I think I also,
I
I'm not
know this
saying I
is
do not agree with him, but we are saying we need time. We need
right.
time to study it, do some tests,
But you know,
do
the
some
thing is,
demo
time
in
is not
other
something we
states.
exactly have on this program right now. But I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on the program. We've been speaking with Senator Kabir Gaya. He's the chairman Senate Committee on INEC, as well as Dr. Hamisu Abdurrahman, a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.